Hi guys, how's it going? Andrew here, and today I'm going to show you how I use Anki, primarily with the telenovela method. That's pretty much the only way that I use it right now. That is my method of learning languages. So that's how I use it. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pull up a movie that I've used before that I really like and recommend called Pan's Labyrinth. It is a Spanish movie that's set in World War II in Spain. It's kind of a fantasy thing. It involves a little girl in sort of a fantasy world that I think is supposed to be real, but you could also interpret it as being in her imagination if you wanted. But it's a really, really good movie. It is in Spanish and it has Spanish and English subtitles available for it. I have the Spanish subtitles turned on, of course, and I've got it here in towards the beginning of the movie, and all I want to do is just basically show you how I use Anki. I'll start it up right now, and it's syncing and doing this thing. You see I've got Pan's Labyrinth here already. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new deck for this. I'll just click add right there. Oh, no, that's not right. Next, there we go. Create deck at the bottom. Call it Pan's Labyrinth 2. And this is just kind of a demo thing I'm doing. I'll delete it later. And I'll open that up. And when I'm ready to add a card, I'll just click add. So let's start the movie and get some vocabulary here. All right, this is her husband here, and she's pregnant, and he wants her to get in a wheelchair. She doesn't want to, so she says, no me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente, meaning I don't need it, I can walk perfectly fine. Let's say I don't know what andar means. I see this, and I don't know what that means. Well, I'm going to pull up my web browser here where I've already got all the tools open that I normally use. You'll see I've got most of the tools that I recommend to you here. I've got Spanish Dict and Google Translate, Urban Dictionary for looking up slang, Google for anything I can't find otherwise, and if Google doesn't cut it, then I've got the word reference forms I can refer to. I can post in here and ask people for help. Word reference forms really are excellent, but only use them if you cannot figure out what it means any other way. If it's something that you could have found in the dictionary or via Google or something like that, or especially if there's a thread that's already been submitted on there that you could have found by searching, people are going to not be real happy with you. They're going to say, well, you should have searched first. You didn't need to ask this. So do be sure to search first if you're going to use word reference forms. But anyway, let's say I don't know what andar means. And the first thing I'm going to do is run it through the dictionary. All right, I see there that andar means to walk. Could mean to walk is a primary definition. There's a couple other secondary definitions there, but we'll pull this up and look at it, and we can discern from the context that andar means to walk, right? I mean, the way that it's being used in the scene here, the wheelchair, no me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente. And if you're still confused, you could, of course, just pull up subtitles track and then switch over to English right there. All right, and it'll show you in English what it means. And I guess we could go ahead and do that real fast. Wouldn't be a problem. Subtitles track, English, play. That's not necessary. I can walk perfectly well. Okay, so we're going to put andar in. Now we'll just go up here to the top, click add, and we will say on the front of the card that we're going to be shown first, we would say to walk, and then on the back we put andar. Now I also like to do one of two things here. I want some context. I want an example sentence that the word's used in, and I prefer to use, for the example sentence, I prefer to use the actual sentence it was used in when I learned it at the time. So what I want to use is this sentence right here, the Spanish one. We'll just rewind that, and then Spanish. There. That's the sentence I want to use. I want to use no me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente. I could do one of two things here. I could just type it out. No me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente. All right, and I could leave it like so. Now, another one that I actually prefer, that I think is much better, is to take a screenshot of the scene in question. I like to pause the movie, and I'll use something for screenshot. On Macs, just use Grab. It's in your utilities. If you go to I believe it's applications, and then you go down to utilities, and Grab will be right in there. But use Grab, and then we'll capture selection, and I will just do that. All right, this way, what I can do now is I can take this screenshot I took and I can insert it into Anki, like so. Pow, there it is. So I've got the context it was used in, and I can see the scene from the movie. This is really going to help when I go to review it. It'll really help me remember, because I'll remember the scene from the movie, I'll remember the two of them interacting, I'll remember the context, the scenery, the uniform he was wearing, the clothes she was wearing, that nice old car. I'll remember the wheelchair and the whole context of the thing, and it really helps you to remember the vocabulary that you're trying to learn, or grammar, or what have you. If you will, if you're using a movie or a TV show, take a screenshot of it like that, and you can put it right into Anki. Anki will actually also allow you to record audio. So you could either record yourself saying it, or you could play the movie and hit record, and you could record it with an external microphone like this, or the internal microphone in your computer. How good the audio quality is going to be on that, I don't know. I'm not sure how well that would work, but you could do that if you want to. I don't typically, primarily because I'm at a fairly sort of advanced intermediate stage with my Spanish, so I know how that's supposed to be pronounced. I can read it and I know how it's supposed to be pronounced. I know that it should be no me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente. I don't need a recording to tell me how it's pronounced, but you could do that if you wanted to. You could make a recording. So we've got this here. I could put tags on it if I want to. I don't ever do that because I don't ever search for cards, so that's not really going to help me. If you wanted to, though, if you wanted to be able to find it later, you could put a card or a tag on it there, like wheelchair scene or something like that, if you wanted to be able to look it up later. And then we've got our example sentence. We've got andar, means to walk, and we are going to click add. Okay? Now, when it comes time to review this later, we've got it in Anki, okay? All we have to do now, let's say it's the next day and we're going to study it. We would start up Anki and it would tell us that we've got one new one due. All right, we're going to go ahead and study it now, but you'll see it'll show the front of the card here, but it doesn't show the back, so it says to walk. And you might say, now you know that this is from Pan's Labyrinth, all right? So you already know which movie it's from, so that might help you remember it a little bit. And then you would, of course, try to think of the answer. You would think of andar. Even better if you could remember the example sentence it was used in. You could also test yourself that way. You could say, all right, I need to not only remember the meaning of the word that's on the front of the card, but I also need to remember the example sentence it was used in. You could do that as well. And that sentence was, I'm going to try and get it without looking, no me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente. Yep, that's correct. And then I would click show answer. The answer is andar, and then there I see the screenshot of what it was. No me hace falta, puedo andar perfectamente. And if I were to click again, that would mean, and it has shortcut keys, you could just hit the number 1 on your keyboard for that, or 2 for that one, or 3 for easy. If I hit again, that means I got it wrong. That means I was not able to think of what the answer was. You know, if it shows me to walk and I were to guess caminar, which is another word for to walk, and then I tell it to show me the back of the card, I can see that I'm wrong, in which case I would click again, and it would keep going through the deck, and this would eventually pop back up and we would try it again. You know, let's say I got it right this time, then I would say, well, was it good or was it easy? If it was good, it'll show it to me again in a lesser amount of time. If this were a card that I had seen a few times, then good would mean, it's saying here that it's going to show it again in less than 10 minutes. If I have reviewed this several times correctly before, good could mean that I won't see it again for another 20 days or 2 or 3 months even. I've got cards that are like that. I've got cards that if I click good, it won't show it to me again for another 1.5 years. That's how many times those cards have been reviewed. So that's how you can have cards that, 1,500, 2,000, 10,000 cards. Anki can actually hold over 100,000 cards. You can have that many cards in there, and it still only takes you 15 or 20 minutes a day to review, because the great majority of them, after they've been reviewed a few times, are only going to come up once every few months, once a year, once every 2 years. They don't come up that often. After they've been reviewed a couple dozen times, they won't come up but once, but every maybe 8 months to a year and a half or so. And that's how that works. So let's say I click good, and it's going to review in less than 10 minutes, so it needs to come up again. Now in this case, if I click good, it's good for another day, or I could click easy, which means I won't see it again for another 4 days. All right, and that's it. That's how Anki works. In this case, we're done, so we can go back to our decks, and then you would quit. And the nice thing about Anki is it will synchronize itself with if you have an account with Anki, which is free. What it'll do is it'll synchronize itself with the server. All right. What this allows you to do is, and the reason it's taking a while to upload is because it has to upload that picture that I put in there, that screenshot. What it'll allow you to do is you can have Anki on multiple devices, laptop, your cell phone, your desktop, work computer, whatnot, and they'll all synchronize to the server. So if you review some cards while you're at home, and then you sync it, and then you go to work, and then you have a break or take lunch or whatever, and you want to do a little bit more, you can pull up Anki on your smartphone or on your work computer, and it'll sync itself to the server, and it'll update from the review that you did that morning at home. Or it'll sync the decks. It'll count those reviews. So they're all in sync, which is a very nice feature to have. And that's it. That's how Anki works, and that's how I use Anki with the telenovela method. There you go. Oh, one more thing. If you're interested in teaching yourself Spanish using free online resources, especially if you like the idea of using things like Spanish language movies and TV shows and books to teach yourself Spanish, which is the method that I specialize in, the telenovela method. A telenovela is a Spanish language soap opera. Then check out my website at howlearnspanish.com. That's howlearnspanish.com, because howtolearnspanish.com was already taken. I'll also put a link to it below in the description if you're watching this on YouTube.